propositioned and almost kidnapped by my creepy, golf cart riding neighbor. For some background information, I'm a female about to start my final year of secondary school, after which I will, hopefully, be moving to Kitchener for university. Currently, I live in a small town, around 600 to 700 people, in southwestern Ontario, pretty much at the base of the Bruce Peninsula. Now, my family has been living in my current neighborhood since around 2002, so I'm pretty well acquainted with most people around here. My town isn't the worst place by any means, but there is quite a bit of meth users and dealers around, which is really pretty common in small farming towns like this, sad as it is. And you were driving around here, you definitely see several empty houses that people use as drug dens, as well as burned out trailers and vans that people have used as rolling meth labs and since abandoned. We also have our fair share of sex offenders and child predators around. Unfortunately, I have several stories about growing up here, but this one is about my scariest neighbor who tried to kidnap me when I was 14. It's important to note that this guy is an alcoholic and lost his license for injuring someone while drunk driving several years back, and so now he just drives a golf cart around. He is also unemployed and spends pretty much every day in his underwear and a disgusting, stained housecoat, driving around on his cart and drinking either red wine or vodka, straight from the bottle. One night, I'm out walking back from a house where I had been babysitting when I hear the golf cart come up behind me. I know it's my bum of a neighbor, so don't turn around, as I don't much feel like talking to him, especially alone when it's getting dark. I'm doing my best to ignore the fact that he's getting closer and close to me, yelling at me and calling me darling and baby. He said, "Come on, sweetheart, don't you want to take a ride on my golf cart? You can come back to my place." Keep in mind, he's got to be at least 60 and is around 6 feet tall and 250 pounds. And I'm a 14-year-old girl who would have a hard time tipping the scales at 110 pounds. Soaking wet, needless to say, I'm thoroughly grossed out, and thinking, there is literally nobody on this earth who wants a ride on your fucking golf cart, you disgusting old pervert. But all I say is, piss off, Mr. Solomon. He's really close now. I can smell the alcohol on his breath as he continues to taunt me, making disgusting comments and saying that he wants to fuck me. It would almost be comical, being followed by some idiot on a golf cart, if it weren't for the horrifying sexual harassment type things he's saying, and for the fact that he's now grabbing at me, trying to catch my arm and pull me towards him. He's definitely drunk out of his mind. We're on a road bordered on one side by forest and on the other side by a row of those small, trailer houses that they bring in on trucks. The road swoops around the forest and ends in a muddy cul-de-sac where my house is. I'm pretty terrified at this point, and even though I've been taught my whole life never to go in the woods alone at night, I turn off the road and book it through the dense trees in the direction of my home. He doesn't follow me, he can't drive his golf cart through the trees, and he's way too messed up to chase me on foot. I'm damn near bawling when I see the little porch light on the back of our house. I get through the trees and see my older brother, Dominic, and two cousins, Laszlo and Thomas, sitting on the porch, smoking. They're all pretty alarmed to see me so upset and ask me what's up, so I tell them Mr. Solomon was bothering me. Our family is Hungarian-Canadian, and not to stereotype, but we have some quick tempers. Also, my brother and cousins are all pretty big guys, all over 6 feet and pretty strong from working construction. Add that to the dark hair and half beards and they can look pretty intimidating. My brother pretty much loses his shit and hops in his truck along with Thomas. They go over to Mr. Solomon's house and bang on the door, yelling at him that if he comes bear me again, he'll have them to deal with. Mr. Solomon hasn't bothered me again, and hopefully that's trend that will continue. Please, be careful walking alone at night, even if you live somewhere rural like I do. Sleeper creeper at my golf course job. I started working at my current summer/part-time job last spring. I am situated in a large old building that used to be a country club but fell into disrepair about 10 years ago. Although there's nothing paranormal about my story, it is maybe worth mentioning that the former manager committed suicide in the main office upstairs when they went out of business. It adds to the unsettling quality of this place. Along with that, so do the seemingly never-ending hallways and passages, innumerable hidey holes and half-empty pools, and other strange and used parts of the building like a secret shower room/sauna and a tunnel of storage areas that connect the men's and women's bathrooms. There are also a lot of doors to the outside in this place. It makes sense for a country club, but currently, we only use one small room for the golf course check-in, the kitchen, and one dining room for the restaurant upstairs, and the small cafe area for early morning golfers to get their coffee and beer. The cafe area is where I work. In the summer we clock in to open the cafe before 6 a.m., often before the sun comes up. The golf course people come in pretty shortly after, but I would be the first person in the building every morning. I would unlock the front door, disarm the alarm, walk downstairs in the dark, unlock this cage that keeps the drunkies at the bar upstairs at night from wandering downstairs, and crawl along a long dark hallway with no windows to get to the light switch at the end of a hall. This always creeps me out, and I end up holding my keys between my fingers like brass knuckles. I'm a woman in my mid-20s and I've lived in plenty of bad neighborhoods, and ninja sliding down the walls on the opposite side of whatever doorway is coming up, just because it's pitch black and I am a scaredy bear. By the time I get to the end of the hall and flip the light on, my heart is always pounding out of my chest as I struggle to find the right key to let me into the cafe. The whole situation started when Tim, a golf course employee, mentioned that he kept shutting the door between the men's locker room/bathroom and the storage area that leads to the women's. And every time he would go back in there it would be open again. This, along with some strange noises, was fodder for the bar regulars upstairs to claim this place was haunted by the old manager and whomever else they say died within these halls. Travis, a co-worker in the cafe, also mentioned that a few minutes after he opened, he went into the men's locker room and noticed that it was steamy and smelled like soap. So he went into the shower room to investigate and everything was sopping wet and still hot. He was the only person who was supposed to be there at that time of day, but didn't see anyone, so he let it go. A couple months later, Tim noticed this weird side door that you had to climb up a rickety old staircase on the side of the building. And it wasn't shutting correctly. He fixed it and it locked correctly, and didn't think anything more of it. Shortly after, someone from the golf course came over to tell me that they found someone's entire life packed away in one of their hundreds of lockers that no one uses, and they thought someone was living in the storage room between the men's and women's bathrooms. He must have been coming in before the golf course people set the alarms when they left in the evenings, and leaving after the cafe person, i.e. me, would come in and turn off the alarm in the morning. So that means that every morning, as I blindly shuffled my way down that long dark hallway alone, one of those pitch black doorways actually did have someone hiding behind it. A few days later, a red-faced, angry, bald man in Vietnam-era army-issue glasses came into the cafe and started screaming, puffing, and flailing his arms around yelling about his stuff getting thrown out. He went over berate the golf course people, so they asked him about the contents of the locker. His answers about specific items led them to realize this was the man who was secretly living in one of this building's many dark passageways. I never found out much about him, whether he was dangerous or just homeless, but watching him scream about his stuff made it clear that he wasn't 100% rational. I still work there and do a darkness shuffle down the hall every morning when I work. And although they say everything is on the up and up with the alarms and the doors locking, it still creeps me the hell out. There have been some other creepy things that have happened in this place recently to make me think this isn't all over with, which I will post separately, if anyone is interested. Edit, the updated post got taken down, so here it is. Monday. I noticed a pad of paper and a long metal pair of tweezers clipped underneath the stairs. I thought it probably had something to do with inventory because right before, a manager came in to count our foodstuffs and beverages. Also, it wasn't an area that is easily accessed by customers, but not technically locked in any way during the day. Today, my friend who works at the bar upstairs told me that someone brought this pad to her, and it has some pretty schizophrenic thoughts in it. It has lots of stuff about how electric cars work to support some kind of government agenda surrounding social media and some plans to patent for some sort of alternative energy source that involved the UN and foreign passports. This part of the building is not under video surveillance, so I have no idea who left it and if they were planning on coming back or not, but it could be the same guy from before. He seemed pretty unhinged and definitely liked to spend a lot of time in weird parts of this building. Golfing with stalkers. About 10 years ago, not long after graduating college, I was playing in a regional golf tournament. It was the final day of the tourney and I was lucky enough to be paired with a friend who worked also a police officer. My friend, I'll call him Tom here, was playing extremely well. By the time we came to the 9th hole, halfway through the round for those unfamiliar, he actually held the lead. Being that we were friends, I was happy for him. As we approached our golf balls for the second shot, I noticed what I thought was my then girlfriend, now my wife, behind the green. My wife has strawberry blonde hair, and so did this person, and a similar build. We were still roughly 200 yards from the green though, and there was some haze, so I could not be sure. It became apparent the closer we got to the green that it was in fact not my soon-to-be wife. It was a young attractive girl, maybe 25-ish years old. She had a bright smile. I also noticed that my friend Tom became noticeably disturbed. His demeanor shifted from his normal jovial self to serious and nervous. He proceeded to play the ninth hole very poorly, doing everything at a very fast pace. He walked off the green heading directly to the girl, and a discussion between the two ensued. I noticed how happy she seemed, smiling away as they talked. The conversation ended with her handing a plastic bag to him as he walked off. I remember thinking something to myself along the lines of, "You go, Tom." He caught up to me as we entered the teeing ground on the 10th tee. He was still clearly upset over something. I just assumed it was his reaction to playing the previous golf hole poorly. He was no longer in the lead but one shot back and still right in the middle of the competition. The 10th hole was one of the easiest of the course. After I hit my shot, I proceeded to watch him hit 3 balls in a row right out of bounds, very hard to do on that hole. For those that don't know golf, this was essentially the end of him having any chance of winning or even placing in the tournament. At this point, he was completely out of contention. I was upset for him, as I truly liked him as a friend, and if I wasn't going to win the tourney, I hoped he would. There was an awkward silence as we walked off the teeing ground together. Then out of nowhere, he apologized to me as if he had done something wrong to me. I was baffled and of course told him he had no reason to apologize. However, I had to ask what was going on and if he was okay. I had known him for enough time to know that something odd was going on. He asked me, "Did you see the girl I talked to back there?" To which I replied, "Yes, I thought it was my girlfriend when we first saw her from the fairway. From afar they have a similar appearance." To this, he laughed and replied, "Be very, very glad that is not your girlfriend." Over the next 2 hours, I got to hear and see just how crazy this girl was. He recalled that she was a girl he dated for a couple weeks, breaking it off when she got overly possessive of him. However, she kept coming around doing a lot of the things you hear stalker do. She would show up in grocery stores that he went to, but that he knew were nowhere near her house. She showed up in a restaurant when he had dinner with a coworker. He would see her out his front window as she slow drove by his house. All of this is cray-cray behavior, but let's face it, it's not that serious. It was, however, enough for Tom to be granted a temporary restraining order. It was her final move that moved the order from temporary to permanent and cemented her in the cray-cray Hall of Fame. One night after coming home from work, Tom found a bag hanging from his doorknob. In it were pictures of him. There were pictures of him at a bar with fellow officers from the previous week. There were pictures of him going about his life doing the things we all do from day to day. But the worst were pictures of him working. You see, Tom worked as an undercover narcotics agent. He is the nicest guy in the world, but he resembles a crackhead. Sorry Tom, you do, and he also looks much younger than his actual age. He would often work in neighboring counties undercover. The pictures in this bag included pictures of him working undercover in a city 60 miles from where he and I live. There was also a note in the bag from her commenting how good he looked in the various pictures she had taken. He had to report this incident to his superiors, at which point he was immediately pulled from that work. The judge upgraded her restraining order from temporary to full. However, he believed her when she argued she did not know Tom was working undercover when the pictures were taken.